All right, this is going to be a rough one. Okay, there's no easy way around this. I very rarely do this. I am going to put a viewer discretion is advised on this one. This is going to be some rough stuff. So if you're in a bad place, maybe wait until you're feeling a bit more resilient to watch this one. I just feel, responsible for saying that. I'm not gonna, YouTube's probably gonna demonetize this video. I'm not gonna plug the Patreon or anything like that. It just feels completely inappropriate on this topic. This is something I feel strongly about in terms of public education. If YouTube wants to demonetize me for talking about something extremely important because it makes advertisers uncomfortable, YouTube's part of the problem, and those advertisers are part of the problem. This stuff's important, and we need to be open about this stuff. We need to get back to that open and frank dialogue that was made necessary by the early years of HIV/AIDS, because education and prevention was the only way to stop the spread of that terrible illness. Now that the drugs are better and people can be, non-detectable, now all of a sudden we're sliding back into the, oh no, polite people don't talk about such things. That's bullshit. More on that in a bit. This video is made in response to the things that happened, the murder of Bianca Devins, and the absolutely sickening media response. At least it sickened me. The fact that the media is focusing on her online activities, which had nothing to do with what happened, really. And they're focusing on the fact that the dude who is accused of killing her posted pictures of her dead body on Instagram, Discord, and 4chan. This all misses the point. And this is what the national and international media, places like Rolling Stone and CTV News, shame on you, CTV News. This is what they focused on. The local Utica, I don't know how to pronounce it. Utica. New York press, they treated it like any other homicide. And that should be what we're focusing on, because the actual details of what happened are frighteningly familiar. And it has nothing to do with her having 30,000 followers on Instagram. It has nothing to do with her liking to take pretty pictures of herself and posting it online. This is not an online stalking case. This is not an online harassment case. This is one girl, two guys go to a concert. One guy gets jealous of the attention the girl is showing the other guy. Jealous guy kills girl. And then may or may not have attempted to die by suicide afterwards. There was a botched attempt or something like that. I don't care about the guy. I don't. Because, he had no right to do what he did. The fact that somebody gets to, 17 years old, or maybe he was older, I don't know. But the fact that somebody gets to bordering on adulthood and still can't handle rejection, that's their problem. And that's the thing that drives me so crazy, is that the media is treating this like some sort of unique, sensationalized, Law and Order Special Victims Unit ready case, when it's not. The components of the actual crime are far too familiar. And when you think about that, the fact that a guy, allegedly, I so don't want to say that because he posted pictures, but the fact that, he killed a girl because she liked another guy better, didn't want to be more than friends with him. That's messed up. And we all want to believe that we live in an age where those attitudes are extinct, but we don't. And unfortunately, in the way we talk about these issues, we punish all men for the extreme attitudes and activities of a few. And we do not talk about, women's role in perpetuating these sexist attitudes that underlie crimes of this sort, that a man is somehow entitled to the affections of a woman he likes, and if a woman is too demonstrative or too overt with her sexuality, she somehow has it coming. These opinions should be dead and buried. They are not. And the amount of teen dating violence and intimate partner violence that still goes on is a testament to that. I do want to give a shout out to Jennifer Ann's group, Stop TDV on Twitter. I had the head of Jennifer Ann's group on my YouTube channel when I was still doing dialogue options. Please check out the organization. Jennifer Ann, the group is named after a young woman who was killed by an abusive partner. And, they don't call it violence against women because it does happen to men too. It happens in LGBTQ plus relationships. We know the shockingly high statistics of trans misogyny that go on. And that one, trans misogyny is all about sex role stereotype and not knowing your place. That's what all this comes down to, is we still have these persistent stereotypes about what men are and are supposed to be and what women are and are supposed to be. And no human being neatly fits into those stereotypes. The shorthand for it is men are strong and women are kind. Every woman has unkind moments and every man has moments where they don't feel strong. But this goes deeper than that. That's the shorthand. They call it benevolent sexism. We've talked quite a bit about how we don't like these terms, but wrapped up in the whole benevolent sexism thing is the idea not just of social role, of men as leaders and aggressors and women as complementary and caregivers. There is this modesty hinge that, guys can, pose in an ad without their shirt off. Chris Hemsworth takes his shirt off in Thor, and the guys on Supernatural take their shirts off every week. They're not dismissed as sluts the way women who don't have a problem showing off their bodies do. And, the Bianca Devins' Instagram was pretty tame. I mean, it was mostly just like, it was tame. There was nothing like incredibly lewd, and yet people still thought, she liked attention too much. Somehow people claim she deserved it. That's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. This requirement that women be modest and not want to be seen and not want to matter in the greater world is so destructive. And this is why I advocate so hard for an anti-modesty position. Now, I want to be clear. If a woman, for whatever reason, feels more comfortable covered head to toe, that's a personal decision. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is women being forced into these positions of modesty in a way men aren't in the real world and art. You cannot separate the two. You can't. You can't on the one hand claim that art, normalizes points of view as, art dictates what's normal. We see fashion trends, hairstyles, makeup styles, all that stuff, we emulate it in the real world. This is how marketing works, okay? We can't say that. We can't say media has that power and then claim, oh, I'm just attacking a video game character. A women can wear whatever they want in the real world. Well, if women can wear whatever they want in the real world, then you shouldn't be complaining about how a female character is dressed in the game, unless it's completely like a this makes no sense complaint. You know, if somebody's supposed to be a doctor and is dressed like a fireman, that makes no sense, right? So women running track and field in high-heeled shoes, that doesn't make any sense, right? There's practical concerns that are fair to talk about, but when it's just it's not about realism, it's not about reflecting reality, it's just this makes me uncomfortable and therefore it has to be bad somehow, that's not okay. You are slut shaming when you do that. Just because the woman in question is not real, you can't make this well, it was designed by a man, so it's okay that I attack it on staunchly moral grounds. No, because either something's moral or it isn't. If it feels completely gratuitous, if it makes no sense, I have a big issue on medical dramas and TV shows where there are people working in environments where workplace attire is a certain standard, like, courts of law. And women are wearing wardrobe that, can get you in trouble in those careers. That I have an issue with because it's not realistic. I can't suspend my disbelief when a woman walks into court with plunging cleavage. You don't see that as much as the medical dramas now. But I've heard, nurses say to me, I'd never dress that way at work because I get puked on for a living. It goes right, trust me, it goes right down there if you're wearing a low-cut shirt. That's a practicality and realism complaint. It's not a morality complaint. And let's face it, a lot of these attacks on female video game characters are just that. They're morality complaints, and this leads to ongoing insidious sexism in the world that we just can't get rid of because we're not attacking the root cause of it, right? I mean, if women have to be chaste and modest and our fantasy characters can't break from that mold because people think that, and this is how women enforce benevolently sexist stereotypes, as much, if not more so, as men do, because most men are like, hey, I liked Kitana's Mortal Kombat 5 costume, sort of thing. Whereas, or actually Mortal Kombat 9, was that the one? Was it 7 or 9 where she had basically like the harem girl outfit? It's like, hey, I like that. And let's face it, you can't argue Mortal Kombat costumes are ridiculous from a practical standpoint because the whole game's ridiculous. Like, that's a game franchise you can't think about too hard. So it's all moral. It's a moral complaint. And this trickles down. When you slut shame women, you power shame women. And we know that people who hold these benevolently sexist attitudes have problems with women in authority roles, are more likely to blame women for, violent crimes or sexual assaults that befall them because you shouldn't have worn that, you shouldn't have gone back to his place, you shouldn't have had that drink with him, all that stuff, all this victim blaming. We know these things are correlated. I mean, I experience it. Someone in a place of power in every major video game company in this industry has shut down my involvement in something because I am too polarizing. Every single company, somebody did it in one way or another. And I say much less contentious things than a lot of gaming male YouTubers that these very same companies also work with. So the standard for too polarizing with women is I support women's right, fictional or otherwise, to wear anything we want shut the hell up if you don't like it. Unless it's like a church or a court or something like that where, come on. And even, in some of those anime things, like I can see sexy church being a thing. Like I can't, because it's displacement of reality. The threshold for dismissing a woman for being too polarizing is so much lower. I mean, guys basically have to, rise to the level of hate speech to be seen as too polarizing. Women just have to defend boobs. That's it. Like, oh, and we may express ourselves strongly, or we may, when someone comes at us, we may fight back. We're considered too polarizing for that. Guys have to do way more to be considered a toxic personality. This is how benevolent sexism works, folks. It is not going away until we address the root causes. And I wanted to give that as an example, because we only talk about this stuff when it becomes the horrific extreme that happens to people like Bianca Devins. And that crime is so awful and so sickening, and so these things just shouldn't happen. These things shouldn't happen. They shouldn't. 17-year-olds like that shouldn't, these things shouldn't happen. I really do. These things are preventable. I really do believe these things are preventable. They have to be. We have to hope that we can get better. And the thing is, we can't do anything about profoundly disturbed individuals who take the stereotypes and bigotry, a lot of us have to some degree or another, and take it to an extreme like that. We can't do anything about that kind of stuff. Sociopathy, violent mental illness, we are never going to completely expunge those from society. What we can do is understand the levers that allow disturbed individuals to construct narratives in their mind that take some sort of perverse form of sense. And we can do something about that. And that is not to say that anybody is to blame but the guy who allegedly did it. Well, somebody did it, I can say, but the guy who did it. This is not the same, because we can't stop things this ridiculous. We can't. Like, the vast majority of people know that's wrong and would never even contemplate doing that. And that's part of the problem, is that when we start with the gender theory on this stuff, completely good guys get lumped in with shitheads like that. And that's not so. Like, we know that these violent crimes and these sex crimes are committed by a very small minority of men in terms of sexual violence. They tend to be serial perpetrators. The statistic is something like they'll sexually assault like 7 or 8 women, each one, before they actually get caught. And it just sort of ramps up. But it's a minority. It's definitely a minority of the male population. I want to make this abundantly clear. We also have to start talking about how women perpetuate the sexist stereotypes that prop up the messed up rationale for, most people know murder's wrong, but, revenge porn, for instance, the less extreme things people do to get back at someone who has rejected them, because we see this as, collectively somehow acceptable, that there's some sort of threshold after which we don't need to pay attention to whether another person is into it, and recognize that, what? People have the right to not be into it. It can just be they're suddenly not feeling well, or, hey, they don't like you that much. I'm somebody. A lot of people don't like me, and that's fine. I accept that. if I can do it, because the reasons a lot of people don't like me are pretty fucking stupid. I think I'm awesome. But if I can do that, so can everybody else. And I'm being glib, and I apologize. It's a coping mechanism because this stuff is so horrible. But what we can do is we can knock the knees out of these things. We can be more aware of how all these things interconnect. We can recognize the stories that our culture tells about different types of men and different types of women and the people who don't conform to either side of that, very, very rigid dichotomy. And we can see the problems that causes even when it doesn't rise to the level of murder. And I want to be clear, it wasn't just this one guy that harmed this poor girl. It was the media who sensationalized her murder after the fact, calling attention to the fact that she was on Instagram, that, putting up the pictures of her looking all coquettish and drink water, that's sensationalizing. To link it to online harassment, to use it to perpetuate their own narratives. All this stuff is sick. And all this stuff gets away from what really, really caused it, which is women still have to have a heightened, credible concern for their safety going to a concert with acquaintances, even sometimes people you know very well. There's this pressure on women to safeguard ourselves, to prevent these sorts of things that men don't have to think about. A guy going to a concert with a few of his buddies, he's not thinking about, I don't want to relax too much because somebody may get the wrong idea. That's not something that goes through men's minds as a rule. But women were constantly self-policing that way. Whether we accepting simple kindnesses, right? Somebody gives you a gift, you have to worry that they're going to get the wrong idea if you accept. And a lot of the times, people are just being nice. That was something I really had to get over when people started gifting me games and things like that online. I'd been so fed the whole tale of the white knight that I believe that guys only do that if they want to sleep with somebody or they want something from you. And then, gay guys online started giving me games and I'm like, well, there goes that theory. Gamers just share. Gamers just want to share. And we should be able to pay those kindnesses to each other. One of the things I love about Twitch is people just, gift subscriptions to people. It's this wonderful sharing thing. Gamers want to share. And no one should be cut off because humans are social creatures. A ride home should just be a ride home. And the fact that disturbed individuals use these things as pretexts, this, if I can't have her, no one can. And women do this to men too. And sometimes it's just not as frequent. But these attitudes are messed up, but we continue to perpetuate the idea that women who show any sort of overt sexuality or even overt confidence mistaken for sexuality somehow have less of a right to dignity and personal safety than women who cover up. That's so wrong. That's so completely wrong. But society perpetuates this again and again and again and again, and it has to stop. It has to stop, not because we can prevent deranged individuals from being deranged. It has to stop so that when a horror like this does happen, a young girl's memory and the people she leaves behind are treated with the dignity and the compassion that they deserve, not sensationalizing a crime like this because of tangential details that really had nothing to do with the violence that occurred. And I'm sure you can hear from my voice, I'm very emotional about this, and it's because I connect very personally to this because of what happened, you know, after my friend died when I was very young. You know, every time a young woman is killed young, men to a certain extent too, but we're so overprotective of girls that things go crazy when these things happen. People start looking for ways to justify it so they don't have to cope with the complete horror of it. And we owe it to ourselves and you know, the people who are the victims of these things to confront the horror of it. Because if we don't confront the horror of it, we're never going to tackle this. We're never going to understand it. It shouldn't just be men and women in law enforcement and the legal system that have to confront this stuff. These are societal problems. These are social problems. We need to confront this problem, and it may mean being uncomfortable. You know, a lot of women feel very threatened by being around another woman who's hot and knows it, because too many women define their worth by male attention. And so they start feeling like they're worthless because another woman is attracting more superficial, shallow male attention. It doesn't define your worth. Trust me, as somebody who grew up as a nerd, completely degendered nerd, guys who were friends of mine didn't even register that I was female, to go to, you know, what I did for a living on television for years, and now with the cosplay and everything like that. Trust me, it doesn't, I was still the same person in all those phases. I'm still the same person now, just wearing a t-shirt with like my hair all frizzy with minimal makeup as I am when I'm doing Dragon Crown cosplay or cosplaying Ivy Valentine. And the fact that I'm even still talking about this at 41 years old baffles me. But, you know, that is again, just sort of a social perception of what, you know, 41-year-old women are supposed to do. And that's something I have to confront every time I make a choice to go in that direction. We shouldn't have to, you know? If it's fun, if you can pull it off, who cares? Like, who cares? Plenty of people. And that's the problem. So I know I keep circling here because I am emotional about it. And I do, you know, I don't want male viewers, because I know most of my viewers are male. I don't want you guys to feel attacked. I don't want you guys to feel I'm blaming you for anything. Hopefully I conveyed that. Some of the biggest perpetuators of benevolent sexism are other women. Think about it this way. You know, if a guy decides he wants to be an early childhood educator or a kindergarten teacher, women are just as likely to be uncomfortable with that as men are, probably more so. When a woman decides to wear a short skirt or a clingy dress, women are just as likely to go, what a slut, as men are. And it probably more so at this point, because guys are like, no, I like that. I'm not going to complain because then it'll go away. And that's the thing, is that when we are talking about sexism against women, it is not just perpetrated by men. There is a distinction in hostile sexism. Men are much more likely to hold hostile sexist views against women than women are. But the levels for benevolent sexism are comparable. Women are just as guilty of it as men. So we all have work to do here. And we can start by not tearing down our public avatars of femininity based on what they're wearing or because of the presumption that they're looking to attract male attention. That's just wrong. It's wrong. And it needs to stop. All right. Thanks for watching if you hung in this long. It's rough, so I'll try to do something happier tomorrow. Okay, thanks for watching.